It's been a while. I'm your host, Margaret Thompson. It's the Chronicle, an eco-health show by Lower Merion Township. LMTV and I are extremely excited about the new year. This show takes a look at all things health and environment. You might even learn a thing or two. Welcome to the Chronicle. It's the Chronicle. I'm Margaret Thompson. Today, we're discussing food insecurity. I know. Food insecurity is a tough thing to think about. Knowing that there are people who go with very little or without is upsetting. But it's such an important topic to keep in our awareness. Everyone needs food and water to survive, to live. Everyone deserves access to food, so let's get into food insecurity. What is it? Let's start with the facts. According to the USDA, there are 4 categories of food insecurity: high and marginal food security, low and very low food security. We break it down like this to describe and categorize different levels of food security. Here's some definitions for you. Let's start with hunger. Hunger is defined as an individual physiological condition that may result from food insecurity. And what's food insecurity? Food insecurity is defined as household level economic and social condition of limited or uncertain access to food. So let's try to put that in simple terms. Hunger is a feeling that you have that might stem from not having enough food or even not having consistent access to food. But back to food insecurity. Remember earlier, I also mentioned there are 4 other definitions related to food insecurity. I'll briefly go over that. Food security can be divided into high food security, marginal food security, lower food security, and very low food security. On the screen, there are a few more in-depth descriptions. Essentially, high food security means there are no food access issues. On the other end, very low food security means a person has the least amount of access to food and is likely eating far less than usual. Essentially, anyone who is facing food insecurity is also dealing with hunger. That being said, I am happy to report that levels of hunger are relatively low in Lower Merion. Now, while they're low, unfortunately, that number is not 0. I know, it's upsetting and hard to hear that. Food security, hunger, is a serious issue. The mental and physiological effects of hunger are dire. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, food insecure adults face a variety of health problems and could be at risk of problems like obesity and chronic disease. Food insecure children are at risk for similar issues, but may also be at risk for higher levels of developmental problems compared to children who are food secure. Let's backtrack for a second. Did I just say at risk for health problems for obesity? When someone is facing hunger, how does someone who lacks access to enough food suffer from obesity? We're going to have to dive a little deeper here. In the National Library of Medicine, there is an article in association with the Frontiers in Nutrition journal that covers the issue of obesity and food insecurity by Diana Carvajal Aldez, Gabrielle Cuculon, and Carlos Ordonez. It's titled Food Insecurity as a Risk Factor of Obesity, a Review. One of the very first sentences states, food insecurity not only refers to the lack of access to acquire food, but it includes its nutritional quality and food safety. So just because someone might have access to a lot of food, it does not mean that it's all good food. It's somewhat common knowledge, but I'll state it here. A lot of the time, cheaper food tends to be lower quality. You might be able to go to your favorite fast food joint and get an entire meal for the family much cheaper than you might get it elsewhere. This is also important to know because families that are lower income may not have time to grocery shop, cook, and research healthier meal options. This is because usually working age family members are focused on trying to make ends meet. Let me read a few quotes from the article. Poverty is a key factor that contributes to food insecurity and directly triggers the consumption of unhealthy diets among the low and middle income populations. Food insecurity and poverty not only contribute to the rise of undernutrition, but it can also increase the prevalence of obesity. If there are not enough resources to cover the necessities of life, such as food, water, clean shelter, clothing, healthcare, education, and even transportation, that can put well-being at risk. Specifically, it could lead to even more people finding healthy diets unaffordable. So, what leads to obesity? Well, you gain weight when you consume more energy than you use. Did you know highly energy-dense processed foods that are high in saturated fats, sugars, and sodium are consumed more often than micronutrient-dense quality foods? Which just means food that give high energy but aren't the healthiest are consumed more than healthier, high-energy, nutrient-dense foods. We need certain nutrients for good health. We aren't always getting them. Lower-income people are focused on providing filling foods to their families that are affordable to them. Next time you're in your local grocery store, take a look at the price of a snack food versus its healthier counterpart. Okay, let's move forward. So what happens to make someone food insecure? First off, food insecurity can be a long-term or short-term problem for an individual or household. And there are so many reasons that this can happen, some being income, employment, neighborhood, conditions, transportation, disability, and so much more according to the Department of Human Health and Human Services. For example, someone who lives in a rural area may not have access to full-service grocery stores, or maybe there's not enough money in someone's household for everyone to eat. It may be hard for people to travel to go to places where there is food. There may not be access to healthy food, or unhealthy food may be the cheaper option for someone to have enough food to last them with the money that they have. A lot of people live paycheck to paycheck. They have meticulous budgets that can be eviscerated with a single misfortune. Think of an accident or an emergency, or maybe bills or housing increase dramatically and they do not make enough to cover the difference. There are so many situations that lead to food insecurity, but let's not despair. There are resources to help. If you or someone you know are facing food insecurity, here are some places you should check out. Statewide and federally, there are quite a few resources that can supplement your diet. There's SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. This is a food benefits program to provide low-income families assistance with affording nutritious food. There is TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. This program provides financial assistance to prevent children from being forced from their homes for economic reasons. There's WIC, which is a supplemental nutritional assistance program for women, infants, and children. This program provides nutrition assistance for mothers and young children. Last but not least, there is PA 211. This is a resource that helps connect people with programs that may help to better their lives. It helps you connect with resources when you don't know where to start. You can use the web, call, or text this service. And don't worry if none of these programs seem to fit your needs. There are so many more that you can find on the Montgomery County website, the PA State website, and the 211 website. Check them out. Like I said, there are so many resources as if you are in need, but maybe you are food secure and you want to help out. There are so many opportunities to volunteer in the community, like volunteering at community gardens, soup kitchens, food pantries, doing food drives, and so much more. That's all for right now. We'll be back later with a bit more on food insecurity with the Lower Merion Health Advisory Committee. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to the Chronicle. Last time, we discussed food insecurity. LMTV got the chance to meet with the Lower Merion Health Advisory Committee's Janet Fleetwood and Montgomery County's Anti-Hunger Network's Shannon Isaacs to provide a bit more perspective. Roll the clip.
Hello, I'm Janet Fleetwood, the chairperson of the Lower Merion Health Advisory Council and Professor Emeritus in Public Health at Drexel University, and also a board member of the Monco Anti-Hunger Network. The Lower Merion Health Advisory Council is tasked with recommending plans and programs to the Board of Commissioners for the protection of public health of township residents and advising boards, agencies, officials of the township concerning public health. We also take the recommendations of the commissioners of things and activities that we ought to be doing to promote public health in our township. The council is comprised of about 7 members with expertise in public health, medicine, psychology, nursing, public health law, and other fields who apply and are vetted and appointed by our township commissioners. In this episode of the Chronicle, we wanted to focus on the topic of food insecurity and hunger right here in Lower Merion Township. It's a topic I am passionate about and a somewhat invisible issue in our township to a lot of our township residents. Yet many of our friends and neighbors are quietly trying to deal with the shortage of enough healthy food in their homes to maintain the health of themselves and their family members. You might be surprised to know that there are 6 food pantries, yes, 6, in Lower Merion alone, and that their resources are tapped out by the growing need. It's a hidden issue, except for our neighbors across the township who are experiencing it. Today, we are pleased to welcome Shannon Isaacs, the Executive Director of the Monco Anti-Hunger Network. It's an organization focused on providing support to communities to help effectively distribute food and decrease barriers to obtaining food assistance by working closely with food pantries across Montgomery County, including those in Lower Merion. Thank you for joining me today, Shannon.
Thanks so much for having me, Janet.
Let's start with taking some time to summarize what food insecurity is.
Yeah, so food insecurity is defined as when people don't have enough food to live a healthy and active lifestyle. So that can be anything from having meals that are just a bag of chips, skipping meals, going multiple days without food. It's also not being sure where your next meal is coming from or if you're going to have enough food when you go home from work at the end of the day. So I'd say there's a variety of there's a range of food insecurity that's encompassed by the definition.
Mm-hmm. And I understand when we talk about hunger, we're really talking about that physical sensation. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So hunger is that physical sensation of feeling hungry and also sort of the biological pieces that come with it.
Mm-hmm. Can you speak a bit about what the Monco Anti-Hunger Network does?
Yeah, of course. So Monco Anti-Hunger Network is a network of 73 food pantries, food banks, and free meal providers that do collaborative work. We do innovation projects. We work together to address food insecurity in the county. We deliver food to pantries, and we do some policy work as well.
And what kind of trends are you seeing at Mon?
We're seeing really concerning trends, especially in the Lower Merion area and on the main line in general. And throughout Montgomery County, food insecurity is way up. So over the last 2 years, there's been almost a 70% increase in the number of visits to pantries across the county. We're also seeing severe food shortages at food pantries across the county. So we're seeing this really large jump in demand, I think due to inflation and due to the high cost of living. And we're seeing, not a jump in supply to match that over the last 2 years.
Wow. So I know that Lower Merion has 6 food pantries. Are those 6 food pantries enough to serve the needs of all the people who are coming to them?
I think there is enough, but I think those food pantries need more resources. So they need community members to donate food and money to them. Money especially is very helpful. They need more resources. But they're really fantastic pantries in the Lower Merion area. But I know a few weeks ago I was at a meeting and I just heard that there's really substantial need.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've heard about is that there's a difference between a food pantry and places that provide meals to individuals.
Yeah.
Can you describe a little bit about what a food pantry is and what they actually do?
Yeah, so a food pantry is more like a grocery store. So either you come and sometimes you can pick what you want out if it's a choice food pantry, or sometimes there's prepared bags of food. So you just take usually not prepared food. Free meal provider, some people more commonly known as soup kitchens, free meal provider is a better term. They provide hot meals or prepared meals.
I see. So I understand that the need in Lower Merion has been surprisingly high for people, and that our food pantries are pretty busy. How can we assist in creating a downtrend in that? Is there anything we can do to sort of help the families and the individuals that are finding themselves in a situation where they're turning to a food pantry for assistance?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of things we can do to create a downtrend. One is, I would say, contact your local pantry. There's a fabulous network of pantries here, and offer to volunteer, offer to give money, and offer to donate food. And I think also, I think the same support to the Montco Anti-Hunger Network. Montco Anti-Hunger Network can mobilize funding, and we do this through Montgomery County currently. We provide food purchasing money directly to pantries, and we can create food purchasing opportunities for pantries overall. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to make a positive impact, and I think even an individual can make a big difference, because just a little movement in one direction, it's another person being able to eat that day.
So how might someone who needs food find food in Lower Merion? Does Mon have a resource that they might be able to use to find their nearest food pantry, and maybe the hours they're open or days of the week that they might be open?
Absolutely. So Mon provides a list of all of the food pantries and all of the free meal providers and their hours. You can go to our website, montcoantihungernetwork.org. Right at the top it says Find Food, and everywhere in the county there's a map of where they are, there's a list of hours, and there's a list of contact information. You're encouraged to give them a call just to confirm the hours, but we keep that updated regularly, and it's a free resource to the public.
Oh, that's fabulous. So Mon not only provides resources to food pantries and helping them to learn best practices and how to run, but they also provide resources to individuals who need food, it sounds like, that they could find out throughout the county how to do that. That's wonderful. That's great. So how could someone get involved in Mon in particular?
Well, I'd say there's a lot of ways to get involved in Mon. We're having our annual Hunger Action Conference coming up, so we're looking for volunteers for that. We're always open to people volunteering and getting engaged. Making a donation is very helpful. We also sometimes we have volunteer days where we sort of do things to support our operations. Like we have 2 refrigerated trucks that we drive around the county to deliver food to pantries, where we and help pantries share food among each other. So supporting those trucks and helping with food delivery can be helpful too.
And are there any ways that businesses in Lower Merion or in Montgomery County as a whole might be able to get involved to support these initiatives?
So if your organization provides food, whether that's a grocery store or a restaurant, you can connect with Mon, and we can deliver to Lower Merion pantries, because we have capacity to do that. I think businesses providing volunteer days and sponsorship opportunities, both through Montco Anti-Hunger Network and through pantries, can make a huge difference.
Wow, that's fabulous. So again, your website would be a resource for businesses,
absolutely,
for individuals, and for people running food pantries who are all looking for best practices and advice and direct assistance in some cases.
Yes, absolutely.
Terrific. Are there any questions that I should have asked you that I didn't, that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I think sort of this question about the trends in the county, I think I'd like to talk a little bit more about, because I think just the concern about the number of people we're seeing actually going hungry in Montgomery County, which we haven't touched on yet. So Feeding America says that 2 years ago there were 50,000 people who were going hungry, and that's experiencing food insecurity after pantries and after SNAP and after WIC. So these are people who are utilizing the system, but the system's not meeting their needs. The next year ahead, on the most recent Feeding America numbers, they said 74,000 people were going hungry in Montgomery County.
In
Montgomery County, we're experiencing food insecurity in Montgomery County. So I think what we're seeing is that pantries have not been able to meet the need, but the number of people who are skipping meals, the number of people who are going multiple days without food is increasing in this, especially in this part of the country. But these trends are really similar to the national trends. We've seen over the last 2 years about a 42% of children living in households experiencing food insecurity nationally, according to the USDA.
Yeah, wow. And, you know, I think about Montgomery County, and as a Lower Merion resident, I think of the problem over there somewhere,
Yes,
far away, over there in
absolutely.
the other part of the county. And yet, when I learned that we have 6 busy food pantries right here in Lower Merion, all of which are close to tapped out each week, that was really surprising for me. And I suddenly realized that it's not just a problem over there, it's a problem right here. It's sobering and very surprising for Lower Merion. It's a hidden issue, I think.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people are just not aware that it's not just over there.
Absolutely.
It's here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I have one question I'd like to ask you
Sure.
because you have so much expertise in public health. Could you talk a little bit about the relationship between food insecurity and health, and what kind of health issues come from food insecurity?
Sure. There are close connections between food insecurity and health. Things that people don't even think of. Of course, obesity is connected with food insecurity, surprisingly enough, because often those high-calorie foods are not as nutrient-dense, and we end up with people that are actually gaining weight but not well-nourished. It can affect children, of course, their ability to pay attention, their energy levels, their feelings of fatigue. Elderly people are especially susceptible to the effects of food insecurity and how that might be. It has very direct effects on health, which is why we see this as a public health issue. It's not just a social issue, it's an issue that has important ramifications for the health of our population in Lower Merion and elsewhere. So.
Yeah, it's very, very concerning, and I think that connection between health is just so important. I also think it's connected with education. When we see close to 20% of children experiencing food insecurity in the United States, you can't really pay attention in school. You can't focus on your education. So, you know, to have an effective education system, we have to have every kid eating, which is why school meals are so important.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And giving us some insight into MON, as well as how to reach MON online and the kinds of services you provide. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Janet.
If you or someone you know are suffering from food insecurity, please check out the description. We'll be back with the Chronicle. Welcome back to the Chronicle. When we talk about health, we tend to think about ourselves, our bodies, the ways we can make ourselves feel stronger, lighter, and maybe even try to live longer. But what about the external factors? What can we do to better the environments we live in to create a healthier place for us to live in? Our goal is to keep our environment healthy, which will lead to helping to keep people healthy. We're a product of our environment. We get food and water from the earth. The plants and animals we consume do the same. We are also in control of our environment, to an extent, anyway. So following good environmental practices can lead to a healthier environment for a healthier life. There's so much we can talk about when it comes to the environment, but not enough time in a day to get to it all. So today, we're going to focus on energy, clean energy. So we all know about energy. We see the solar panels on top of houses. We complain when the gas prices rise again. We've seen the windmills. We know energy powers our phones, it powers our computers, our systems, our everything. But the question is, do we really understand it? What is energy? Get ready for a quick science lesson. Energy is the ability to do work. And there are a lot of forms of it. There's heat, light, motion, electrical, chemical, and even gravitational. I know, gravitational, that one's new to me too. Well, anyway, you can even group those categories into kinetic and potential energy. Don't get me started on that. Well, anyway, we can change energy from one form to another, then use that energy to do work, like chemical energy in the food you eat to kinetic energy for your workout after a large meal. People use energy for so many things. But the point is, there's 2 sources of energy we want to focus on: fossil fuel energy and carbon-free or clean energy. Fossil fuel energy sources are things like natural gas, oil, and coal. Energy is produced when these sources are burned. These resources are limited and won't last forever. When fossil fuel energy sources are burned, they release carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, which we'll talk about later.
Carbon-free or clean energy sources are things like wind, the sun, or solar energy, water or hydropower, and geothermal. These sources of energy are renewable, meaning we won't run out of them. And they create energy without burning anything, so they don't add to air pollution. Fun fact, America's primary source of energy used to be wood. It wasn't until around the late 1800s that the primary sources shifted to fossil fuel energy, coal, petroleum, and natural gas. Another fun fact, using carbon-free energy can help reduce greenhouse gas and may help to maintain U.S. energy security and save money. Greenhouse gases. What are they? Greenhouse gases are gases that trap heat in the atmosphere, which is not good. Think about it this way. You know when your car has been sitting out in the sun on a hot day? When you get inside, it's hot, it's muggy. You stick to seats or they burn you. It's not ideal. Your car is the greenhouse gas trapping in the heat from the sun. This is what they mean when people say global warming, except it's the entire Earth being warmed up, slowly but surely. What happens with global warming? Climate change. Back to the car example. You're now in the car trying to get it started up. Again, it's hot, it's muggy, the seats are burning your legs. It's not ideal, but what can you do? It's hot outside. Opening the windows doesn't really help. I mean, fanning yourself just moves the hot air around and provides no relief. But, aha, there's a solution. You remember to turn on your AC and you wait for your car to cool down. Think of the hot car as climate change. Because the car warmed up, global warming, and the heat was trapped. It caused the climate in the car to change. That's the same thing that happens to the Earth when we deal with greenhouse gas emissions. But there is a solution if we act quickly. In the car example, we can turn on the AC and cool down the car. For the Earth, we can switch to clean energy and renewable resources, which will eventually cool down the Earth. I won't go into a long explanation of how this works, but generally, greenhouse gases can take thousands of years to dissipate over time, in some cases from the Earth's atmosphere. This issue is when everyone on the Earth produces greenhouse gases quicker than it has time to dissipate. This means the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere are continuing to rise. It's like when you have a bucket with a hole at the bottom. If you fill the bucket up slowly with water, the rate at which the water depletes from bucket is the same as it is being filled with water. So the water level in the bucket stays the same or decreases. Now, if you flood the bucket with water, the water level will overflow because the hole isn't large enough to offset the flooding. The United States Energy Information Administration does a great job of explaining everything I just talked about on their website. If you want to learn a little more, check them out at eia.gov/Energy Explained. So switching to clean energy helps us to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases and other negative environmental factors to make a safer Earth. We want to enjoy a good time on Earth. We don't want hotter summers and natural disasters, both of which can be caused by climate change, by the way. We want the Earth to be a safe place for our children, our grandchildren, all of our descendants. So how do we get rid of the greenhouse gases? Time and reduction of its production. So here's another term for you, decarbonization. Sometimes greenhouse gas emissions are referred to as carbon emissions. So when you try to reduce and eliminate greenhouse gas pollution, it's called decarbonization. One of my favorite ways to figure out the best way to decarbonize is to use your carbon footprint. Luckily, the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, has a carbon footprint calculator on their website that we can use. Using the carbon footprint calculator, we're able to determine what in our lives is causing a larger carbon emission output and where we can cut down in our personal lives. But what about long-term options? What are we able to do to have an even stronger decarbonization impact? Well, the first would be to electrify your home. EAC member Nancy Winkler presented on transitioning to a clean energy home and its financial incentives. Here's a short clip from that.
So why do we need to electrify homes? This chart shows that even if we were to completely scrub the grid and get shut down all fossil fuel fired power plants and only source the energy on the grid from clean power, we only reduce residential emissions by about 50%. The remaining reduction that we would need to achieve our goals as a nation is if we get everybody to switch out of their fossil fuels at home, which I now feel like I'm sounding like a broken record. But when your equipment dies, electrify. And this is just an image from Rewiring America, which I'll be talking about more later in the presentation, that gives you a sense of all the different areas in your home that you can electrify. And even if you're not ready to get started right now, the number one, very first thing there in the yellow box that says number one, purchasing renewable energy. You can purchase renewable energy today. It's just an option that you have.
If you're interested in watching more, you can find the rest of the video on Lower Merion Township's YouTube page. Besides switching to energy-efficient appliances, electric appliances, going solar, there's another step you can take, and that is switching to an EV, an electric vehicle. EVs get tons of mileage. They tend to run more efficiently than the standard gas vehicle and can save you money in the long run. Not to mention, there are often tax breaks or incentives for using an electric vehicle. It's not the best option, but another affordable option to an EV is a hybrid vehicle. They get really great gas mileage and consume less gas than the average gas-burning vehicle. Even better, you can switch to scooters or bicycles if you live locally to your community centers. If you're extremely local, say you live close to your local grocery stores, parks, or libraries, you may even be able to walk, which is also good for your health. Check out how your local government practices sustainability. Here at Lower Merion Township, we implemented EVs into some of our fleet of vehicles. There's a green roof on one of our libraries. We even piloted a composting program for residents and township employees. Those are just a few examples of many on what you can do to make a difference in your local community. That's all for right now. We'll be back later with a bit more from the Lower Merion Sustainability Manager. It's the Chronicle. For those of you who watch locally, Lower Merion Township is passionate about the environment. It strives to maintain our local beauty and nature. Today, I have a special guest, the Sustainability Manager of Lower Merion Township, Paloma Vila. So, Paloma, I'm so excited to have you. Would you please tell us a little bit about your role and what you do with your role?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm the Sustainability Manager for the township. So that means I help guide township operations to reduce our impact on the environment. And I also look for ways that the township government can help encourage or support our residents and businesses to reduce their impact as well.
That's a really important role. I'm sure it comes with a lot of responsibilities. And do you mind telling us a little bit about your background and how you moved into this position? Credentials, degrees, or anything? Yeah.
So I went to school here locally, undergrad at Temple University and graduate at Villanova. I have a master's of sustainable engineering and very passionate, personally about climate and the environment. So, the township created this position about 3 years ago, and I'm the first one to occupy the role, and I'm really excited to be here.
That is really exciting. I'm so glad that our local township actually has a sustainability office.
We're one of very few in the area, so we're very lucky that way.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's so great to get a little bit of your background, get to know you, who is the face of the office. Now, what do you specifically want to inform us about today?
Well, I know today's topic is all about clean energy, global warming, climate change, things like that. So I did want to elaborate a little bit on greenhouse gases. I think what a lot of people don't know is that greenhouse gases, when they're released into the atmosphere, can stay there for up to thousands of years. So think about that. The fossil fuels that our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents burned for energy created greenhouse gases that are still in the atmosphere. So just to look at numbers, since the 1800s, when we really started using fossil fuels more frequently in our lives, humankind has added about 2,400 gigatons of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, and most of them are still there. And that has caused average global temperatures to increase about 1.35 degrees Celsius or 2.43 degrees Fahrenheit. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, 2 degrees, but we've seen that that's already spurred dramatic changes in the Earth's climate system, as you can see with more intense storms and things like that, droughts, heat waves.
So that's what they mean. That's what they mean when they say global warming. It's an increase in the average Earth temperature in a year?
Exactly. And it's usually compared to the Earth's temperature in the 1800s, because that's when the Industrial Revolution started, which is when we started burning fossil fuels more and releasing more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. You know, it's not so important to get, bogged down in this fraction of a decimal or that fraction of a decimal. What's really important to know is that we're really trying to keep that average global temperature down below this threshold so that we can avoid the catastrophic effects of climate change. It's not critical for the average person to know exactly what that threshold is. What is important is to know what you need to do in your everyday life to keep it from exceeding that threshold.
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting for all of us to kind of get to that part of what can we do. And I really appreciate your explanation. I think we're getting a little bit close to that limit. So what do we need? You're talking about what we can do on a daily basis. So what are some things we can do to limit the emissions we add to the load?
Yeah, so like you said, we're getting close to that limit because we're coming on the tail of what our ancestors already added to the atmosphere. There's not that much wiggle room left in that, what we call the carbon budget, right? There's only so many more greenhouse gases we can continue adding to the atmosphere before the global temperature reaches that threshold and we start seeing just really severe negative impacts. Okay. So now is really more critical than ever to significantly reduce the greenhouse gases that we're putting in the atmosphere. So here at the township in our operations, we're looking at how we can reduce our emissions. And the good news is that it's easier now than ever. It's more affordable now than ever to do that, to switch to solar, to switch to electric equipment.
So, right. And we learned a little bit from Nancy Winkler's presentation about different clean energy home initiatives. And it looks like there are some incentives to help people transition to carbon-free energy and decarbonization in their homes. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Like I said, it's become more affordable than ever. And part of that is because there's these incentives and rebates and things like that that can help you pay for those changes. So I encourage people to go to energy.gov/save and the Rewiring America website to find in a really easy explanation of what all those incentives are and how you can get them. And a tax professional can help you with that as well, because a lot of them are based on taxes.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's always nice to get a little bit bigger check at tax time, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah. And then our own utility, PECO, actually offers really affordable energy assessments, which will tell you where you're wasting energy in your home and help you reduce the amount you use overall.
So I'm going to go off the grid for a moment for this question. I'm wondering if some of our viewers would be curious to know, if I'm plugging into the electric grid that's using some of these fossil fuels, is it really going to help if I get an electric car? So just out of curiosity, what do you have to say to that argument? Because I think, I'm curious as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's actually a question a lot of people have. And I think that for a long time, we were worried that it really wasn't worth it to have an electric car or an electric stove if that electricity is still coming from the grid. But actually, it's been shown that electrification in the home drastically reduces greenhouse gas emissions, even if you're using grid electricity. It's still one of the best things you can do to reduce the amount of carbon greenhouse gas emissions that you're putting into the environment.
So in general, using less energy means you're burning less fuel to make it and producing fewer emissions. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay. Even if we're using those electric panels, we're still reducing our emissions, our fuel emissions overall. Is that correct?
Yeah. So basically, there's a few reasons why that's the case. I think conceptually we can agree if you use less energy, you're burning less fuel to make it, and you're producing fewer emissions, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So if you think about it, power plants, even if they're using fossil fuels to create the energy, they're using that fuel much more efficiently than your car or your furnace are, for instance. So using grid electricity, even if it comes from fossil fuels, it's still going to be more efficient and use less of that fuel overall, causing fewer emissions. So that's one thing. And then electric equipment like heat pumps, induction stoves, electric vehicles, they're inherently more efficient than their fossil fuel counterparts. So what does that mean? So for example, a gasoline vehicle, 80% of the fuel that's used in that vehicle that's pumped into that gas tank is actually wasted in terms of inefficiencies from heat created in the combustion process and things like that. So about 80% of that doesn't even get used to move the vehicle. Whereas for an electric vehicle, only about 11% of that gets wasted and the rest is used directly for powering that vehicle.
Okay, so it is a really good idea for everyone to start moving towards the clean, efficient energy
Electrification,
of the whole home.
Yep.
Part of this series also discusses health issues. So doesn't decarbonization within the home help with air quality as well? That's, I think.
Yes, it absolutely does. So if you think about driving in a car, a regular gas car, what comes out of the back?
Oh, emissions.
Exactly.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's happening because you're burning the fuel in the internal combustion engine, and the product of that process is the emissions that come out of the tailpipe.
Okay.
So that right there, even just tailpipe emissions, that's a form of air pollution. Similarly, in your home, burning natural gas to light your stove or your furnace, that's releasing air pollution into your home. And then another thing is gas leaks are, something that everybody has to worry about. I highly encourage everyone to have carbon monoxide detectors in addition to fire detectors smoke detectors in their home. But that's something you don't have to worry about when you go all electric. You never have to worry about a gas leak again because you don't have gas in your home.
If we're thinking about health, indoor air quality in the home, what kind of potential is there for if we keep burning fossil fuels? What kind of health problems are associated if you know with burning fossil fuels?
Yeah. So from what I've seen, the major areas of concern with this type of pollution is asthma rates go up. You see asthma rates go up in areas where there's a lot of car traffic, and that's due to the vehicle emissions. But you also see higher rates of asthma in homes with natural gas usage. The chemicals that are released are also tied to things like cancer, increased heart disease, and things like that. A lot of it, there's a lot going on in the environment, so it's often hard to attribute it to one thing, but more and more information is coming out about the negative health effects of these things. So if you can get it out of your house, even better for your health as well as for the environment.
So just as a little bit of a wrap up, you move to clean energy, you're helping the environment, you're helping yourself, you're helping your neighbors. Is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap up our discussion today?
Yeah, I think this conversation, we talked a lot of numbers. We talked about, some scary things, extreme weather. It can all get a little overwhelming and a little scary. And I think it's just important to just stick to the basics, right? Clean energy where you can get it, like solar and wind, and electrify whenever you can. You also don't need to get overwhelmed about doing it all at once, right? It's expensive to change your heater in your home and your stove. So what I like to tell people is to just start with making a plan or a checklist. Go through your house, walk through, look at the systems and things that use fossil fuel, like your stove, your heater, your water heater, and just note, how old is this piece of equipment? What is the average lifespan of this piece of equipment? When might it be time to replace this piece of equipment?
Wow, thank you so much, Paloma. This is all really excellent information. So there you have it. If you want to help improve your health and the health of the environment, clean energy and decarbonization is the key. And there's lots of rebates and tax incentives to help you do it. So be sure to go to energy.gov/save or the Rewiring America website to see what's available and make a plan to transition your home. Thank you so much, Paloma.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
It's the Chronicle. If you've been keeping up with us, you'd know we covered a few heavy topics. We've talked about food insecurity, and we've touched briefly on climate change and energy transition. We've talked with the experts. We've gotten some ideas. Let's make a change. Imagine being able to do something good for the environment while also contributing to those in need. Well, I might just have the thing. Why not try volunteering at a community garden or create a garden of your own? Let's start small with a personal garden. If you have a small pot or a small plot of land, this may be a good way into learning how to garden. Think about your family's needs. What are your favorite fruits and veggies to eat? How often do you eat them? Well, when you grow them yourself, you can have them right outside of your door. So, in my house, we eat a lot of potatoes, tomatoes, lettuce, carrots, grapes, strawberries. There's just so many options available, and when I grow them, it's convenient too. But for our demonstration today, I'm going to plant a few apple seeds to grow. Today, we're growing plants for my apartment, so we don't have to worry about planting in the right season. The basics of gardening include dirt, water, and sunlight. Also, a place to put your plant in. If you're like me, I try to spend the least amount of money to start my new gardens. This means I'll be starting from seeds. Here's a quick video on how to germinate a seed to make it grow quicker.
To germinate a seed, you need to create a warm environment. An easy way to do this is to use a damp paper towel and to cover whatever seeds you would like to germinate. Place in a plastic bag and wait until a sprout forms. In this case, we are using a petri dish in a warm environment.
Otherwise, you can just toss a seed into the dirt, and next, we water all of the soil. This way it takes longer for the soil to dry out, and it helps pack the dirt so the roots of the plant have something to grab onto. Next, you wait. Now we have a plant. If you're lucky, your first harvest will have a few veggies and fruits to pick off of. The more plants you have, the more you can supplement or supply your family's diet. It's so easy to grow plants at home, but what if you don't have the space? That's where community gardens come in. Oftentimes there are small plants you can rent or even just use for the season. Sometimes your local food pantry might have a garden available for you to use, and they might do the growing for you. LMTV and the Lower Merion Health Advisory Committee's Janet Fleetwood went on location to tour a local food pantry and community garden. Janet?
I'm Janet Fleetwood, Chair of the Lower Merion Health Advisory Council and Emeritus Professor of Public Health from Drexel University. I'm here today to talk about food insecurity in Lower Merion Township, and joining me is Commissioner Gilda Kramer from Lower Merion.
I've been working on the issue of food insecurity in the township for 5 years since I first went on the Board of Commissioners. And it is a underappreciated problem here in the township. We're here at Mitzvah Food Pantry, which is in my ward, and is a wonderful pantry that provides both kosher and non-kosher foods for a wide variety of our residents.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Phil.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Mitzvah Food Program, again, operated by Jewish Federation. We operate 4 food pantries in the greater Philadelphia area, and this location is in Bala-Cynwyd. We serve about 250 families every week through deliveries, pickups, and emergency services. We provide canned and dry items, fresh produce, frozen proteins, and dairy products. We have been growing in the last couple of years, especially through the pandemic, but also because of inflation and stagnant wages. We see about 4 to 6 new families at this location every week. So most families are looking for fresh produce and frozen proteins and dairy. And that is one of the most challenging pieces to get for our clients. So we are open on Thursdays by appointment between 1:30 and 5:45. And our deliveries occur on the other 4 to 5 days of the week.
So, how can people here in the community who care about other people in our community help you?
So we are always looking for food donations. We are a kosher style pantry, so we're specifically looking for kosher products, but we will take any kind of product as long as it's within its best buy or expiration date. We do not take any pork products, and folks can also support us financially if they prefer to support us that way.
Can you show us a bit about what's going on here?
I'd love to, yeah. So this is a Thursday, and on Thursdays is when we have our pickup hours, our appointment hours. So we have volunteers packing our fresh produce. Fresh produce comes in as cases, and then we have to divide that into servings for our families. So we are a choice pantry. Most of our clients on Thursdays, they order online, so that way they're actually picking and choosing the products they need from us, and then our clients will pick up at their appointment today.
Now Commissioner Kramer and I are visiting Eldernet Food Pantry right here in Bryn Mawr. We'll be going in to take a look and to see what kind of pantry and what kind of approaches they have here at Eldernet. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your pantry operation?
Okay, well, about 10 years ago, we started the food pantry here to help out community members who we found were food insecure as we were having conversations with them about their lives and trying to help them out in other ways. We are a free choice pantry, so people that come shop can pick for themselves what they're taking, and people can come here once every 2 weeks. So we serve about 80 to 100 people a week, depending on the day and the situation. We also do deliveries. So for people who have a particularly hard time getting out of their homes, or we can't transport them with our volunteers, we will bring food to them. We have been seeing a steady increase in the amount of people shopping with us over the last 3 years.
What's your biggest challenge in running this food pantry?
Keeping it stocked. We are constantly running out of stuff. Paper goods is a massive issue. We have a lot of, a big older population for whom paper goods are an easy way to manage cleaning up.
Do you take donations of paper goods or cash donations?
We take cash. We love the items themselves. Yeah, because of our limited space, it is difficult keeping up with the demand when we don't have a lot of room to stock up, so to speak. So we have 2 freezers that we can use to collect perishables. So we'll give away, occasionally ice cream and sweets, but mostly meats, some frozen vegetables. And same thing with refrigerated stuff. We do have 2 refrigerators, so we can keep some eggs in stock. We will get some dairy from our donations on Monday, and whatever little we happen to have, we will store in there.
When is the pantry open for people to come?
People can come and shop on Tuesdays or Thursdays, and we have two sessions. So there's a morning session from 10 to 11:45 and an afternoon from 2 to 3:45.
We're here at Neighbors Helping Neighbors Food Pantry in Ardmore, Pennsylvania, and we are here with Commissioner Gilda Kramer. Hello, hello.
Hi, how are you?
We're especially interested in food insecurity in Lower Merion Township, as you know, and so we're interested in seeing how you've met some of the need in your neighborhood.
Okay, so I'm Manira Walker, and I'm the founder and executive director of Neighbors Helping Neighbors on the Main Line. And we have 3 programs here, but like you said, today we're focusing on food security. Gilda is a regular donor of ours. She makes soup for our beneficiaries, and they love it. And so,
So I've heard.
yeah, I get calls about her
heard.
soup.
Legendary soup, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad they like it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And we're glad that you pitch in. That's the whole premise of Neighbors Helping Neighbors. It's just for everybody to pitch in what they can. And together we solve the larger issues. So when we first were contacted by the school district close to the onset of COVID, they told us that they had 80 students who they didn't know how to get the food to. That really showed me that there were a lot of people that we weren't reaching. In order to take them their breakfast and lunch, we realized very quickly they probably need dinner, they need food for the weekends. So we just started engaging. Our food security program services over 400 people a week. We have our delivery system every Thursday morning. We have a pop-up walk-in service on Saturdays. And we have an after-school program with children. We feed them every day. We're on 24-hour call with Lower Merion Counseling and Mobile Services, the police department. When anyone pops up an emergency and needs help immediately, they call us, and then we just get the food right to them or whatever service they need.
Can you show us around a little bit? So we can
Absolutely.
see?
Sure. Well, as you see behind me, we have some storage getting ready for the winter, but we stock up. We try to always have shelf-stable items around. What I think we all learned from COVID is that we need to be prepared at all times. Yeah. And then over here, we have just, we have our standard refrigerators and a chest freezer. And then we also have this row of file cabinets that people don't realize. We have a jelly drawer and we have peanut butter drawers. So we just have everything isolated so we don't have any cross-contamination. Of course, things that have allergen possibilities, they're all on the bottom. There's nothing else below those items. But these are just the creative ways that we use this space in order to not get caught short, hopefully.
That's great. And we hear you have a garden.
We do have a garden. You want to go outside?
Yes, please.
Okay. So over here we have our community garden. The raised beds were made by a young man who was gaining his Eagle Scout badge. Oh. He and his friends together built the beds.
Wow.
Another gentleman in the community pitched in and he said, okay, I'll get the soil. And then the plantings, while they were doing all that, our children started seedlings inside. Well, the best thing to do is to go on our website because, like I said, we do have 3 different programs and see if there's a fit somewhere in there in a way that they want to volunteer. What everybody gives, including what I'm giving myself into this, creates a situation that is healing our communities in Lower Merion, and that's what we're most proud of.
Thanks, Janet. Lower Merion Township has so many incredible resources for you and your family. If you or someone you know may be in need of assistance, check out the PA211.org website to get started finding the resources you need. Search in Lower Merion by putting in your zip code. If you would like to learn more about Lower Merion Township Sustainability Office, go to lowermerion.org and click on the Sustainability tab. Well, I'm your host, Margaret Thompson, and this is The Chronicle. We'll see you next time.